When the pioneers began their nearly 2,000-mile journey across the West in the early 1840s, timing was everything. Start too early and there wouldn't be sufficient grass for your livestock. Start too late and you might face the treacherous snows of the Sierras. And once on the trail, maintaining a steady pace was critical, with a goal of covering between 15 and 20 miles per day. Anything less meant missing your deadline for crossing the mountains. Anything more meant stressing your oxen and requiring additional time to recruit them. Life on the trail was never easy, but sometimes just getting started was tough. The Bryant-Russell party left Independence, Missouri on May 5, 1846. Let's read Edwin Bryant's journal entry for that day. Our wagon, which had been in the hands of the smith several days for the purpose of adapting it in all respects to our journey, we expected would be ready early this morning. But when I went to the shop to ascertain if the alterations and fixtures were completed, I found but little done. The smith made his excuses as usual in such cases, but promised to go about the work and finish it immediately. I learned how to value his promises and determined not to leave the spot until I saw the work finished. This was done about 3:00 p.m. Our ox team, which had been kept in readiness for several hours, was immediately attached to the wagon and our luggage placed in it with all dispatch, and at 4:00 the wagon and team, under the guidance of Brownell, the driver, left the town. Business detaining me for a short time, I did not overtake the wagon until it had rolled, as the teamster's expression is, about a mile from its starting point, where I found it firmly and immovably stalled in the mud, so far as the power of our team could be considered an agent for its extrication. The oxen, being untutored and unmanageable, could not be prevailed upon to unite their strength. I dismounted from my horse, and with the aid of Curry, McKinstry, and Nuttall, endeavored to raise the wheels and thus assist the oxen in their efforts. But all our exertions were in vain. Fortunately, a man with a well-trained yoke of oxen came down the road. While we were thus engaged, and hitching his team to ours, the wagon was immediately drawn out of the mud, and, to use a nautical expression, we were set afloat again. Proceeding a mile farther, I determined to encamp for the night, it being nearly sunset, on a small stream which crossed the road. Having selected the site of our camp in a grove near a log house, the wagon, driven by Brownell, soon came up, but in attempting to cross a causeway thrown over the stream, the wheels ran off on one side and we were stalled a second time. We were relieved finally from this difficulty by a Santa Fe teamster and his oxen, who came down the road during our labors to extricate the wagon. A Mr. Ross of Independence, passing at the time, acted as master teamster on the occasion and performed his duty to admiration. The oxen seemed willing to obey him when they would not heed the commands of others. We ascended a small elevation and encamped for the night. Our provisions and cooking utensils, in the haste of departure, had been packed in the wagon without much regard to convenience, in case we should be obliged to make use of them, and we were consequently compelled to remove many heavy boxes and trunks before arriving at our meal, flour, and bacon, and the pans and dishes of our kitchen and table. Upon careful inspection, we moreover found that sundry pots, skillets, and frying pans, which we had specially ordered and paid for, were wanting. During the process of cooking supper, it commenced raining and blowing with great violence. Our fire was nearly extinguished by the deluge of water from the clouds, and our dough was almost turned to batter. Curry, after most persevering and praiseworthy efforts, succeeded in browning the coffee, but Jacob, when he set about grinding it, could not make the coffee mill perform its appropriate duty, and it was voted a cheat. The rain came down so copiously at last that our fire was entirely extinguished, and our culinary operations were suspended until nearly 10 o'clock. The violence of the storm abated at that hour. Brownell soon after succeeded in placing before us a supper of half-baked cornbread, fried bacon, and coffee. We ate standing with the falling rain and our clothing completely saturated with water. Our oxen became entangled in the ropes by which we had secured them from straying during the night, and it was not without much labor and difficulty that they were released. Jacob and myself made our bed, or rather took shelter from the storm among the boxes in our wagon. McKinstry and Brownell bivouacked under the wagon, and Curry and Nuttall under a large tree. The suspension of the fury of the storm lasted until about 2 o'clock in the morning, when the rain recommenced falling in torrents, accompanied by peals of crashing thunder and flashes of lightning so brilliant as to illuminate the whole vault of the heavens. Notwithstanding all these inconveniences, we rested pretty well. Distance, 2 miles. Not a very good start to a long, arduous journey. Concerned that their progress was too slow, just outside of Fort Laramie, Edwin Bryant and Colonel William Al Russell would trade their wagons for pack mules. The Bryant-Russell party would then go on to successfully traverse the infamous Hastings Cutoff, reaching Sutter's Fort on September 1st, 1846. Just one example of the true pioneer grit and determination that led settlers west.